Hello, 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 friends. Nicholas here, and I would like to welcome you to Ayurveda Digested. Sadly, we did not do the December 20th episode. That was my birthday, by the way. Bridge was traveling. It was my birthday, and then, the holidays set in, and it just rolled out. And then I'm like, well, it's only every 2 weeks in between. And then in between, did I sound southern when I said that? It's only 2 weeks in between that full moon or new moon and the full moon, and here we are. So here I am recording. And as you may have noticed, Bridge isn't here. She had a baby who reacted to the excess vata from traveling and flying and tootie and needless to say, she said it was kind of gross. In all the loving your child kind of ways. Maybe that's just my interpretation. So anyway, I'm here with you guys solo for a new year, a new way of moving through the world, all new doshas and gunas and things that can throw you out of balance, as well as things that can draw you into harmony. Oh, man. So I don't need to preach to anybody about the holidays in the U.S. especially. I'm sure it's similar in other countries, although other countries seem to have better work-life holiday consumption balances than, say, our culture does in a lot of instances. Not always, but, frequently enough that it's kind of a caricature. But anyway, I had a fantastic holiday and I had a great birthday season. I had a lot of reflections and I'm moving into the new year great. And I'm liking it. I feel more sure-footed, right? So opening a new business, especially in the lead up to opening it and in this first year of business, was so much vata because of the unpredictability of everything and anything that my kapha was just like, teetering. And, I mentioned before about how I leaned into different habits to weather the challenges of the current energies, at least at that time. And I made my way back. I had to work things through the system. I had to make the choices that I made. I had to do the things that I was going to do so that I could walk away knowing what the results and the outcomes were. Just for me, because I don't want to have to wonder. I would rather experience and then know, or have data for making choices in the future. Now, I want to come back to something that's been, coming up a lot in my Devo TED Talks. If you haven't checked me out, I also have a podcast called DIVO hyphen capital TED space talks, like TED Talks, but it's devoted because my business is Devo. And so it's either Devo TED Talks or Devoted Talks, both of which work perfectly in the name. So search me on any engine, whatever you're listening to me on now or us on now. And within 8 to 12 minutes, I have these little snippets and tidbits that I'm going to cover like I will here. Covering it like I would on the Devo TED Talk so that you guys can get an experience of that and see if that's something you want to be a part of or listen to as well. Because I do talk about Ayurveda and yoga a lot. But essentially, I am taking ancient wisdom and practices and taking them through a modern lens and experience so that I can show people ways that they can end suffering in their lives and in the lives of the ones they love. Getting closer, something like that. Anyway, I've been doing it for almost a year now, so loving it. But anyway, a topic that frequently comes up is proximity impacts or affects perception. And the easiest way to understand that is when you put certain colors next to each other, each individual color looks different. Or for instance, like when you say somebody wears a certain color of clothing and it makes their eyes pop. Or like today, as I was sitting here, I was like, the orange here and the orange here is making my beard look very orange when normally it looks not quite so orange. I mean, it is half ginger. I call it Auburn. I only play a ginger on TV. At any rate, um, but that's like the easiest way to understand it. But say you're close to a person that does things that you don't like, and then your proximity is affecting your perception of the things that they're saying and doing. Or say somebody's telling a story, but then they mention this person, and that influences how you interpret the story because of the involvement of that person, or at least that person's name. And so I think with those two examples, you can really start to extrapolate all the ways that this can manifest in a life, or in general, right? Just the greater world that is out there. And holidays offer us proximity to a lot of things, whether it's thoughts, whether it's experiences, whether it's people, places, or things that have lots of emotions, some of which are really good, right? Some people go home for the holidays and it's this magical, hallmark, fun family experience. Some other people have a god awful, challenging, crazy experience, or they don't even go home at all, or they don't do Christmas or family or holidays or Hanukkah or whatever it is, because they don't get along with their family. And just the thought of it, that proximity to the thoughts, is enough to affect their mood, to affect the way they go through life. Now, from a yogic standpoint and from an Ayurvedic standpoint, our proximity to different gunas impacts how far or how close we are to being harmonious, or solid in our prakruti versus vikruti. And so this is constantly shifting and changing, and we're constantly balancing within that. That is what the doshas work for. They work to adjust and change to protect us from the external influences so that we don't get so far out of balance that the system fails. That's a very strong and harsh way of labeling what the doshas do. They are a psychosomatic buffer to the changes of life, whether it's emotional, physical, or mental or spiritual. And all these things are shifting and changing all the time, and then thus our life experiences change and shift with them. And so what does this mean for us? Well, it means that if, for instance, going home to family is depleting in a certain manner, before going or after going, or both, you're doing things that build an escrow and a surplus of that thing from which depletion happens when interacting with family or friends. Think about the types of people there are in the world, right? We have 2-minute friends, 2-day friends, 2-week friends, and 2-month friends, right? 2-year friends, right? People who we can only tolerate spending so much time around, right? Because of the impacts that our proximity to them has on our psyche or our feelings. And, that doesn't just stop at friends. That's like everywhere, right? Like people talk about don't liking going to the DMV, and think about how many emotions around that. DMV, for international listeners, is where people go to get their, license and renew their license, and anything with car stuff. And, if you can understand what is being scooped out of your bucket, what is being extracted from you, then you can focus on the placement of it into you beforehand, so you have a surplus, or a restorative version afterwards, right? And I have lots of feelings about what self-care is. In a buzzword sense, self-care is going and getting a massage and going and doing fun things, YOLO, whatever. In a true sense, self-care and, taking, care of your wellness, or monitoring your wellness, is things like getting enough sleep, getting enough water, getting enough of the things that make your day easier, like a ritual, like no nonsense. I said I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, right? If you can't even depend on yourself, how could you depend on others, right? I mean, I'm guilty of that. I am bad because I have the good intention of wanting to do something, but when the time comes, I don't know how I'm feeling. Um, and so to be responsible, I've had to learn over the years to say maybe a lot because it just is going to depend on the day and my overall energy and how I'm impacted by it. And the sooner I can accept that, the easier time I'll have to navigate social situations and nobody gets their feelings hurt, including me, right? I have lots of I have lots of feelings about people who act like other people are intentionally harming them and just like you've got to respect my boundaries and I know that I've changed things but I'm telling you now and you need to learn, I'm like, you're having to do this to try to recoup the power that you surrendered. But if you just didn't give it up in the first place, then you wouldn't have had to steal it back on the back end and then cause all kinds of bridge burning in the process. Right? I laugh at people when they say things like that because I'm like, it's not my fault that you overextended yourself because of some internal need for validation inside of you. Right? I am not causing people to act the way they are. Their proximity to me may impact how they are feeling or reacting, but it is because of where they're at, not because of who I am. It's their proximity plus their internal state that's shaping their reality around them. And if you don't like your proximity to things, change it. If you don't like to feel over requested to do things, don't overcommit. Like, go and say, hey, this is the last time I can do this. Right? I said this a lot on Devo TED Talks, and I don't know if I said it here, but my definition of boundaries is the line to which I'm willing to go up to with my actions and my interactions that conserves my energy and I don't lose anything in the equation. In the modern world, and especially in Western culture, boundaries are these arbitrary things that I want to throw up to get what I want in a situation or to try to reestablish my energy that I feel like I've given away by creating these barriers, these offensive or defensive slash offensively played defensive strategies to restore this energy that I have constantly been giving away, but nobody made them give it away. They may act like somebody made them give it away, but in any given moment, you are choosing to accept something or choosing to question something. And if you just go along with something without questioning it, then there's outcomes that are associated with that, much like there is outcomes with questioning things, right? Sometimes questioning something is not a good thing because it gums up the system. But again, if somebody feels like they need to question something, then we should just acknowledge that. My biggest qualm is that, like when I take classes, I love school and I love education. What I don't like in a community environment sometimes is that some people will hold back the educational progress because they're not quite getting something or the group as a whole is not getting it quite as fast as me. But I want to pay what I want to pay for the classes. And so if I'm not paying for a private tutor and paying a salary to this person to teach me directly, well, then this is the outcome of that. I have to deal with people who may or may not be getting stuff at the same level as me. And that's my responsibility. It's not the fact that the teacher's letting it go slower for those people. I chose to go to a place that has those people, right? And it's not that there's anything wrong with those people. It's that if I want something different, I have to choose differently or just accept what is there. And so our proximity to things sometimes encourages options for choices and sometimes limits our options for choices. But both of those are seemingly, because the proximity is impacting what we can or cannot see as we're in relationship to that proximal item. And item could be an experience or a person or a memory, really. I would say a lot of people's bad attitudes are just their proximity to so many of their memories that they can't let go of. Hello. This is a good one. I like it. Oh, I like where we're going with this. And what Ayurveda is calling us to do is to get all of these things out of us that aren't serving us, especially those emotionally, and especially those that are in the past or the future, because they're not real. The only thing real is what is happening right here, right now. And that doesn't mean that the thing you fear won't come tomorrow, but your worry today doesn't dictate whether it comes tomorrow or not. We probably tell ourselves that it impacts our preparedness, but are you really prepared if somebody pulls a gun on you? I don't know. Like, I've seen people freeze and they have a gun in their purse. Well, why are they frozen? If they have something to defend themselves, or if they have something that makes them feel better about going out in public and they still get robbed, like, what are they going to do in the moment? Right? Yoga and Ayurveda tell us that, and actually modern fitness tells us that you're going to do whatever you've practiced most. So if you've practiced freezing in life because things scare you instead of pushing through them, that's what's going to happen if a gun gets pulled on you. Conversely, if you practice pulling the gun out in stressful situations, like going to a shooting range, but not just a shooting range, but like a marksmanship place, or like a something that's set to train you how to be in the moment. I think this is lacking in a lot of police academy systems. Like, how can you go to a police academy for 8 weeks and then be a cop? You know, I don't know that actually happens. I'm pretty sure it's not a long time, whatever it is. It's a lot less than you would think with somebody who has a firearm and arresting capabilities. I mean, that's crazy. But beyond any of that, you will do what you've practiced most. And if you are not practicing peace, anything that happens to you will send you to whatever you've been practicing. If it's worry, if it's stress, if it's anxiousness, if it's running away, these are the things you're going to do unless you intercede and change and practice something more. Right? In fitness, I say your body's going to look like whatever you do more of. So if you do more of eating, you're going to look like you do more of eating. And if you do more of exercise or training, then you're going to look like you do more of that. Period. End of story. And it's not just our bodies, it's the SED principle, specific adaptations to impose demands. We will develop based on the resistance that's being applied to us. We will develop to the demands that are being placed on us. If we are demanded to run, we will have bodies that are adapted to run. If we are demanded to exercise, we will grow muscles in accordance with the weights that we are lifting and the movement patterns and recruitment to which we're doing. Like, some people talk about they can't grow their chest, and I go, that's because you're not doing a chest press right. And I can easily see that within one rep, and yet they've been doing it for 20 years or 10 years, or it doesn't even matter, 5 years. Whatever you practice more of, whatever you do more of day in and day out, week to week, etc., you will resemble that thing, especially under duress, especially in stress. And that has to do with your proximity to it. If you do more of it, you are more proximal to it than if you do something else to which that is what you are proximal to, and that affects your perception. A stressful situation isn't stressful if I'm used to stress. I would say that sometimes I would get the most clear when I was bartending when it got crazy. Because the only solution to that stress and that crazy was to get on point. And that's what I would do. But it was the proximity to the stress that got me to get to the focus, because I had practiced getting focused when it got crazy and balls to the wall. Hopefully this is making sense, and hopefully you're understanding where I'm coming from. Because in the modern world, we are not that different than the people in Ayurveda times, in that we are all still human, them then and us now. And there are just certain things that are a part of being human, no matter what stories or civilizations we create. Like, it's still contested about what's better, communism or socialism, or, I mean, right now we're saying communism and socialism is bad, but there may be a time that it is found to be good again based on current structures. Like, we don't know, right? And it also depends on your proximity to data. Like, are you only looking at a segment of right now, or are you looking at future or in the past? So all we have is here and now, true, but we do have past precedent that can help us inform our choices for future directions, but it's only going to happen in the now. Thinking about it doesn't actually create it. Thinking about it and then acting on it is what does. But it's all about your proximity to anything as to your perception of everything. So what are you holding close to you? What are you doing that day in and day out you may or may not be paying attention to, that is causing your world to be experienced and perceived the way it is? And if you are experiencing and perceiving suffering, is there something simple that can be changed that will change your perception because you've changed your proximity to that habit and action that could completely transform the way your future looks? I would go out on a limb and say, yes, there is. The question is, do you have the time or the desire to do it? Most people have the desire, and they convince themselves that based on everything else in their life that they don't have enough time to do that. But that's because they are proximal to go, go, go lifestyle. But if they really stood back and thought about it, wow, maybe I'm doing more than I need to, and I'm just doing that to stay busy so that I don't have to think about things more completely or more fully than I want to or desire to. All right, my friends, I'll end this like I do Devo TED Talks. Be well and be free. But this was Ayurveda Digested. We broke it down. Don't forget to follow Devo TED Talks or Devoted Talks on your favorite podcast streaming service. Namaste.